Okay, just before I let you get into this video, this just shows you how my brother and I are unfortunately totally addicted to Jaguars. This is just two of the Jaguars that we own. I also own an XK8. My brother owns an XKR and an XJS. And of course, we have the E-Type, which you're about to see. I'm afraid we were addicted to Jaguars, and it's all my fault. I bought a XJ6, and my brother, I think, rather liked it, and ever since then we've been into them. Of course, the story goes back a long further than that, but we won't bother getting into that. I also do want to caveat the initial part of my brother's introduction. Don't believe a word he says. I am much better looking than he is. I am much more intelligent than he is. But I allow him that. And no, don't worry. My brother and I just rib each other all the time. And I got a funny feeling we kind of like each other, considering we had to share a room for many years. Okay, there is just one other thing I wish to add prior to you watching the video, and that is that my brother, as he mentioned, is much, 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 much older than me. People ask if he's as old as dirt. I tell them no, he's as old as rocks, because rocks come before dirt, and he is ancient. He even remembers the Ice Age.
Hello everyone, I'm Trevor, Gary's older, wiser, taller and infinitely better looking brother, and he's asked me to make a video of our E-Type. Since the car is up on the lift, I thought I would start with the bottom. Twin exhausts are unmistakable, are they not? As we move underneath the car, you will be able to see the rear subframe, which has been thoroughly refurbished. New springs and shocks, pumpkin's been painted, vented disc brakes with Girling calipers, I believe, probably from an XJS. We slowly move forward, along the car, where we see the gearbox. This is not the original gearbox, as you can probably tell. It is in fact a Tremec T5 5-speed gearbox, which they told me would fit into exactly the same place as the original, and it does. The only difference being that it's slightly larger and is a bit of a tighter fit, which made getting to some of the parts like the speedometer drive rather difficult. There's the engine. The front suspension has been completely refurbished, and we have also vented discs by Wilwood here on the front. The tyres are new. And then we come out at the front end of the car. And here she is down on the ground. Let's go and have a look, starting at the front. EME1B is her UK registration number. In the UK, cars are known by their registration number, not their VIN. This one, if I can find out, will tell me where the car was first registered and what year it was registered in. Well, the letter B on the end tells me the year. It was 1964. When this car was first registered, in February of 1964, the owner would have had to buy this tax disc, which would last for a year, so The one I've got here is not exactly right for this particular car. It should read February 65. As an early 64 car, this car has the 3.8 litre engine and a dynamo rather than an alternator. You can see the typical 3.8 arrangement of the inlet manifold, air and water lines. And forward, if you look very carefully, you should be able to see my new electric fan. One of the reasons I started this latest restoration was because the original fan motor died, and while I was trying to replace it or make it work, I decided to put on a proper electric fan. And at the same time, I happened to notice that the bushings in the front suspension were all looking pretty ragged, so I decided to take the front suspension apart, and you know how things go from there. The only upgrade I've really done under the bonnet is to put Pertronix electronic ignition in the distributor and the coil. Gary and I originally painted the car British Racing Green with a tan interior, which was what we wanted at the time. But as you can see, the colour has been changed. I had it painted a few years ago now, emerald green metallic, which is a Jaguar colour from the early 2000s and has a little bit of a metallic sheen to it. It's not particularly that. Very often people mistake it for black, particularly when it's not in the sun. If we put it in the sun, she comes out really nice and shiny green. The sunroof is an original Webasto sunroof that was fitted sometime in the 60s, we think. We're not sure. Now to the bit that I am currently working on, the interior. I decided to make the change to red because I thought it would match the car better. And here you can see how far I've got. The rear door panel went on nicely, and the little panel at the top there which glues in went on nicely, but the panel that goes around the top edge of the door, I can't get it to stick, so that's some work to be done. What I have just finished is the driver's side, or the right hand side for me, door panel, shut panel, seat, with the seat I had professionally done and I just put it in. And the new red seat belts. So my next task is to go over the other side and fit that panel that sits behind the door there. It sits over there, and then the panels that go around the window. I trimmed the center console myself, and I fear it has come out as a little bit of an amateurish look. The sleeve for the handbrake I made because the original car didn't have a sleeve there. The handbrake just comes up through a slot with a rubber thing in it. Didn't like that. The radio console, I didn't install the radio because it's a positive ground radio and this is now a negative ground car. So what I did was to cut a piece of the black board that goes underneath the dash and cut it to shape, blackened the edges, pinned the little leaping cat in from a Series 2 ashtray and screwed it in place. Unfortunately, the suppliers of the blanking plate supply the backing part, which you can see with the chrome surround, but they don't supply the insert, so I had to make my own. The car originally came with 4.2 style seats, but when we restored it for the first time, those seats were so far gone that we couldn't restore them and we couldn't get any replacements. So we fitted seats from a series, I suppose a 4.2, no, I lie, from a 3.8 coupe open top car. And when I took those seats out last year, they were in pretty bad shape as well. So I ordered some new seats that are the real proper 3.8 litre fixed head coupe seats. And this is what they look like. And finally, the headliner. I had not intended to replace the headliner, but when I was test fitting the cant rail above the window there, I discovered that the headliner itself was getting a little thin and had actually become unglued in a few places. And when I examined behind it, I discovered, much to my horror, that there is a fair amount of light corrosion around the headliner, both at the front and the back. So what I decided to do was tear out the old headliner and clean up and paint those areas, which I have not done yet. Then I might be getting some professional help to put the new headliner in. So that's it for the moment. That's how far I am with this car. It's drivable, it's nearly finished. All I've got to do is get on with it, or as Gary would say, get out in the garage and do some shit. Here's a little extra. When I was taking down the sun visors and the mirror from the inside of the car, I discovered that the chrome in certain areas was a little bit dodgy, a little bit of rust, not very pretty to look at all. So I've decided I'm going to paint over those areas with a bright metallic paint, and look, the results are quite good. Those are the fittings for the sun visors, and over here is the mirror. The back of the mirror was fine, but the stem was kind of nasty. And this is the stuff I'm using. Rust-Oleum Bright Coat Metallic Finish. I got it at Lowe's. Not bad at all. On these two items you can barely see the difference between the real chrome and my painted on chrome. There's just a line there where I had it taped up.